So I wanted to create a quick video to talk about how you can get out of this situation where the code of Python is working on your machine, which is a window machine, but when you deploy it in Lambda in AWS, it doesn't work and you get all kind of errors. So for my situation, I was trying to sign a JOT token, and for that token, I needed a cryptographic library. Now, this code, when I run it on my machine, everything works fine. I deploy it, I get all kind of errors. And the reason is in AWS Lambda, it runs Linux boxes. And when you run it on your desktop, which may be window machine, then you get the libraries of Windows. When you deploy that, it does not work. So what is the way out? One option, I thought I will go and start using Cloud9, put the code there, deploy, nothing works. And then I saw there are a couple other issues with Cloud9. This whole app doesn't work all the time. It will work like 30% of time, otherwise you can keep refreshing your page, it doesn't load. So what is the solution? So the one solution is to create a Docker image of the Python version which you want, and then put all the code there, and then deploy your Lambda as a Docker. Again, here is the Docker file, very straightforward. Get the Python version from ECR AWS, put the requirement file like this, copy requirement to Lambda task root, and if you see my requirement file, it has that cryptography, and that was the issue in my deployment. Then let's go back to Docker, install everything whatever is in requirement, copy my Lambda function Python file, this my Lambda function, and then there's a Lambda handler. This also gave me some trouble. I will talk about it later because I had named them differently, but it created some issues. So I went to default, call your file Lambda function and call your function inside the file Lambda handler. Just stay with default for now. And then here's the command. And this is all default. So you can go ahead and right click and then say build image in the VS Code. Now, obviously, you have to have Docker installed on your machine. You have to have extension of Docker on your VS Code. But once you have all that, you build the image and it moves pretty fast. So now I have a Docker image ready to go. Now I have to deploy it into the ECR, into the registry. So let's go here, Elastic Container Registry. You go here and just create your registry and select that registry and look at the push command. Here, interestingly, they have Windows and Mac OS. But for me, this didn't work because of some setting in PowerShell. But anyway, this command should work. I type AWS configure, and this will set up my access key, key ID, and all that, and I am logged in. Now, once you logged in, then you go ahead and tag your image. And this tagging command and push command, all you will get out of this registry here. All the commands are here. Okay, just cut and paste. Make sure your Docker name is same as you build the Docker. Okay, once you're done with that, you tag it and then you push it. And here I'm pushing my Docker. Once it is done, you go back to your Lambda here and you go ahead and create a function. This time you choose the container image, give a function name, and then you get the container image. Here's the URI of your container. So you take this and you put it here. This is again a very tricky thing. If your architecture is not matching, you will get a lot of error. But now you have a Docker, you can quickly change this and see. But mine is x86, I'll leave it as is, and then you can create a function. Once you create the function, you have to make sure, here is the function definition. You have to make sure this entry point, command and work directory should be properly filled up. Initially, when I did not name my files Lambda function and Lambda handler, I was trying to put this entry point, the file name and method name and all that, and it created a lot of issue for me. So finally, I can get rid of all that, leave it as default, and just use the default Lambda function and Lambda handler name. After that, I got into another trouble. I started getting an error because I did not have permission to read the secrets from secret store. So for that, you have to come here, and so I was getting into trouble that I was not able to read the secret store. For that, you have to come here and go into the configuration and permission here, and you can see there's a Lambda execution role is there. So you have to edit this, and that's where you can define a role. And this role should have all the policies. One policy will be that this role should be able to read the secret store. It should be able to read your DynamoDB. It should be able to read any other services, whatever it wants to do, and it should have a role. It should have a permission to execute your. So those are the couple of things you have to make sure it's all working. This resource-based policy statement is not needed because I have a proper role which has all the configuration. Now I can go ahead and test my function here. Run it, and there's an issue here. What's the issue? Task timeout. The task timeout because it's too less time. This can be changed again from configuration, edit, 3 seconds. Let's give it to 10 seconds. Beyond that, there is some issue if you don't finish in 10 seconds. Wait for this to turn into green. And now let's test this again. Okay, it's green, it all executed, so it all worked. So quick recap. When you cannot deploy the Lambda from your box, the easiest method is create a Docker, push it into the registry, and create a function which gets the container image, and make sure it has the proper policy and permission. Actually, you have to define the role. Use an execution role, and here you have to have a proper role defined, and that role should have all the policies. So hopefully it helps some people. I spent hours figuring this out, whole thing.